Greetings everyone, this is Dominic from the Comic Book Report YouTube channel, doing a guest review today for Organic Price Books. And today we're going to be doing an overview of Batman Joker's Asylum, the trade paperback from DC Comics. The volume itself collects Joker's Asylum, The Joker, Issue 1, Joker's Asylum, Penguin, Issue 1, Joker's Asylum, Poison Ivy, Issue 1, Joker's Asylum, Scarecrow, Issue 1, Joker's Asylum, Two-Face, Issue 1. After that, the collection includes issues from Joker's Asylum 2, with The Riddler, Issue 1, Harley Quinn, Issue 1, Mad Hatter, Issue 1, Killer Croc, Issue 1, and finally Clayface, Issue 1, all part of that Joker's Asylum 2. Yes, that is a lot of Joker's Asylum happening in here. And now, while we take a quick look at the exterior of this book, I'll just give a brief context as to what this collection is. Effectively, this is an anthology series, or at least a collection of two different anthology series connected to the Joker, wherein he guides us as the reader through his look into the lives of each of these Batman villain characters. In this way, Joker serves as host throughout this collection, in the same way the Crypt Keeper does in the series Tales from the Crypt. And because he's sort of guiding the storytelling within this collection, automatically it lends a kind of sinister and insidious air to the entire storytelling as a whole, and serves as a really fun framing device for this series. To the best of my knowledge, this single trade paperback includes the entirety of the Joker's Asylum and Joker's Asylum 2 series from DC Comics, within its 248 pages. The binding of this collection is a glued binding, and the paper stock, I'm happy to report, is a nice glossy print page. Another truly novel facet of this collection is with all of these different issues showcasing each of these different Batman villains. We also have an equally varied creative team, with each comic having its own writer, penciler, sometimes colorist, with such names as Jason Aaron, J.T. Kroll, Joe Harris, Alex Sanchez, Gilliam March, Joe Quinones, Bill Sienkiewicz, and so many more. With all of these creatives behind a book that has all of these vignettes, I think there's truly something for just about everyone who considers themselves a Batman fan. For the most part, I found that each story added a real layer to each of these villain characters they showcased. And again, the kind of editorial framing device from the Joker added a really sinister quality to each of the stories. He's almost guiding us through a tale of woe or tragedy that is attached to each of these villains through his own lens. And having each issue have its own creative team, you got so much variety within this relatively smaller collection. For fans of other kinds of literature, this is the comic book graphic novel equivalent of a book of short stories interconnected with a very loose framing device. And on my part, I was absolutely charmed, and frankly, sometimes a little creeped out. As far as the quality goes for each individual issue, it would vary a little bit, but I found myself enjoying almost every issue within this collection. I think because we have so many different creatives and we're tackling so many different characters, there really is this sense of individual voice for each of the characters that are showcased. The Penguin does not sound like Poison Ivy, who does not sound like Mad Hatter. Of course, this is the way it should be with any good writer, but especially when you have a team of all of these different writers, it really does stand out as each issue feeling very unique. And the same can be true of the art style, which goes from almost impressionistic to very fine line work and detailing, and just about everything in between. I know for me, reading issues like the Mad Hatter and Scarecrow had more abstract styles, which fit so well with those villains in particular. I even wonder how they divvied up the issues between the writers and illustrators and the characters they were showcasing, because everything felt just about pitch perfect to me. Personally, I've been a fan of Batman for most of my life, and have been a reader of Batman for, well, over a decade now at least. And even with everything I've read, I can certainly say that Batman Joker's Asylum was a truly unique trade paperback collection in my eyes. It's rare that I've read something like this that not only showcases with each issue an individual villain, I found myself connecting with them. They really played with the sense of inherent tragedy that these characters seem to have. They almost self-inflict their own wounds in many ways, and I found that to be really engaging in a way I didn't expect. And I think the fact that we have it all curated by the Joker, again, it gives it this quality that I have not really felt reading a Batman comic book. Within these issues, there were even several stories that ended with kind of a twist ending or a shock ending, many that almost leave you feeling like, yes, these are the villains in Gotham, yes, these are the air quotes bad guys, but who's the real villain here? Are the regular people just as at fault? Are you, as the reader, at fault? What's going on here? And I think the kind of twisting of that with this sort of unreliable narrator that is the Joker was really illuminating in a way that, again, was a bit unsettling, a bit off kilter, and it lent a really unique quality to this work in my eyes. And it really is a testament to the Batman villains and the caliber of these characters that even after these 10 issues showcasing all of these villains, I still feel like there could be a Joker's Asylum 3 and maybe 4. Because even with all of these characters, we still didn't dive into characters like Mr. Freeze, or Bane, or Man-Bat, or Ra's al Ghul, or Professor Pig, or so many more characters that could use this same treatment. There's not even a Catwoman story. I think that, again, this is such rich narrative ground and such a creative idea from DC Comics that I'm surprised we haven't seen more in this series. But even with these 10-ish issues that we have here, we have quite a bit of storytelling, and some that really kept me on my toes. I think some of my highlights in this collection personally are stories from the Mad Hatter, Two-Face, and Killer Croc. While I can say I highly enjoyed most of this collection, if not all the issues within, I think that those three are maybe my biggest standouts. In the case of the Mad Hatter, we have, like in so many of his stories, his fixation on blonde young women who bear a resemblance to Alice from Alice in Wonderland. His Alice, in many ways. We have him fighting his kind of psychotic nature before he ultimately succumbs and goes into his mind-controlling, psychedelic rampage. But as his story is told primarily through his own lens, we get to see his descent into madness firsthand. And it's a really unsettling story. And the artwork that they used throughout kept me turning page after page. The Two-Face story in this collection really left me at the edge of my seat. It really examined the nature of good versus evil, black and white, and the idea of fate. The story itself has Two-Face interlocked in this conflict with another gentleman who has himself been horrifically scarred in a similar manner to Two-Face. The idea being that this is what Two-Face could have been if he chose the better angels of his nature and decided not to pursue a life of crime. However, after Two-Face escapes Arkham Asylum, he confronts this other scarred man, kind of posing his worldview of this nature of fate and 50-50 chance, light and dark, and the kind of mutability of good and evil as an extension of just fate. And it really upends this guy's life, and exploring that was really sinister. I think it was sort of a psychological thriller kind of vignette, and I was just floored by it. It might be one of my top tier, if not my favorite within this collection, and the artwork was stunning and highly detailed. And finally, the third standout comic I wanted to mention from this series is, of course, Killer Croc. This is a character I don't have the privilege of knowing a ton about, but whenever I've seen him in animated films or when I've read him in comics, I really enjoy this character. I like how he functions, and I really like the humanity they can often bring to this monstrous-looking character. And I think that the story within the pages of Joker's Asylum is really no different. We get to see Killer Croc kind of down on his luck, and he eventually kind of goes in with this guy who's trying to become an up-and-coming new crime boss. We have the Killer Croc serving as sort of an enforcer. There is sort of a weird love triangle thing within the narrative. I think the story's even called Beauty and the Beast or something like that. But we really just get to see the humanity of this monstrous creature and the monstrous nature of a lot of the humans in the story. I think the story is so sad and violent and tragic, and again, for a short story in this collection, I thought it was an absolute standout. And even as I continue to make my way through different samplings of this book for your enjoyment, I really did just want to focus on a few of the key stories that really left an impact on me. But there are so many more in this collection. Like I said, there's something like 10 issues total, and each one is so very distinct. I am curious in the comments below, let me know if you've ever read Joker's Asylum. This was my first foray into either of these miniseries collected in this book, but I don't know what I was doing that I missed the first run printings on some of these earlier collections and issues. I'm really not certain why DC Comics decided to print this collection now. All I can say is I'm certainly happy they did, because it gave an opportunity for readers like me to stumble across a, well, relatively hidden gem as far as I'm concerned. This really lent a new layer and lens by which to view some of my favorite Batman villains, and I'm really thankful for that. I think having Joker as the central figure and just sort of curator, as I mentioned earlier, was a masterstroke and was absolutely creepy throughout. There really is not a ton of extras at the back of this collection, but the collection itself feels very full, and I don't feel like I'm lacking having all this content and all of these stories for this one singular price point. Right now, you can find Batman Joker's Asylum for sale at organicpricedbooks.com, where I received this copy for review. Definitely don't sleep on this, guys. If my recommendation means anything, and I'm not sure it does to you, please consider picking this up if you are a Batman fan or a fan of comics in general, or if this sounds interesting to you. I'm really happy I gave it a chance, and I'm thankful I had the opportunity to review it all for you. And if you enjoy reviews like this, or even more comprehensive reviews of this nature, please check me out on my channel, The Comic Book Report. Thanks again, and don't forget to take a look at Organic Price Books. Have a good one.